It's time for another Dice Tower review with Z Garcia.
Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at Zooloretto Duell. I'm going to say Duel, okay? Zooloretto Duel here is, as you might have guessed, a two-player only version of Zooloretto, in which you are attempting to put together your own zoo by having animals in front of you and some vending stalls as well for your customers. It is a card game, really, sort of a tug-of-war style card game between two players that utilizes the splitting or gathering mechanism that we saw in Zooloretto and we saw in Coloretto, the predecessor to Zooloretto. Let me give you a look at how it goes. We'll come on back after that, and I'll tell you if I think it does a good job of turning that concept into a two-player game. In the game, players are going to be collecting different kinds of animals and vending stalls in order to have a majority of those things and score victory points. At the end of the game, you are going to get one victory point, as featured on these tiles here, for each kind of animal of which you have more than your opponent, and you are also going to do some interim scoring with these tiles as you hit certain thresholds on the board, the numbers printed on there, okay? So here's how the game works. Very simple. You pick a star player. Each player has a coin to begin with, and you are off. On your turn, you have one of three things you can do. You can flip a card and add it to one of the three trucks, the capacities being 2, 2, and just one card here. You can take a truck and take everything on it, deploy it in front of you. It has to be not empty. And once you do that per round, you are done until your opponent also takes a truck. And the final option is you can do a money action, which takes 2 coins. So I'll talk about that in just 1 second. So let's say this player is a star player. They're going to take one. They're going to flip it over, and they're going to assign it to one of the trucks. In this case, it is an ice cream stall. It's a vendor. So they're going to put it there. And then it comes back to me. I can choose to take this truck, put the vending stall over here, and be done. Or I can flip a card. So I'm going to flip this one over, and I'm going to assign it right there. It's a buffalo. Back to my opponent, who is also going to flip a card. It's a bear, and it has a little symbol in the top corner. There are 3 of those different symbols. I'll talk about them in just 1 second. They're going to put that there. Comes back to me. I'm going to go ahead and take these animals. When I take them, I assign them to the appropriate spots. So bears go right there. The buffalo goes right there. And I take this truck as well to remind me and my opponent that I've already taken a truck. They can keep going. They can take this one, but they can continue flipping if they want to. So they're going to flip another one. Oh, that's nice. 2 stalls. And they could flip one here and then still take this stall, but they'll stop. They're pretty happy with this, so they'll go ahead and take both of those stalls. They took that truck. Round is over, which means these both go back in, and we start the next round with the player who took last being the starting player to deploy or take an action, possibly a money action, okay? So that's basically it. The interim scoring I was talking about happens when there are enough animals on both sides to equal the number printed on there. So, for example, the buffalo here, as soon as there are 4 in total, either I have, let's say, 3 and my opponent has 1, as soon as that happens, we do an interim scoring there. And the player who has more than the opponent is going to get the top token from this stack. In this case, 3 victory points here. And then we are going to take this piece of the tile, of the middle strip here, and flip it over to remind us that we've already scored there. This is a little tricky, but you just slide them back into place. Come on, there you go. So once that happens, that's done, and we've already scored them. They'll still score at the end of the game for 1 victory point. Whoever has the most of them will get that victory point. And this is true for all of them. Some of them might trigger interim scoring throughout the game. Some might not before the game is over. When it comes to the vending stalls, they behave it a little bit differently. Once you have the 4 different kinds, then you'll trigger interim scoring there and you'll get the top tile. But they don't score at the end of the game like the animals do. Now, the symbols I was talking about, there are 3 different kinds of those. So you are going to get the lightning symbol. That's a bad one. That means that's an angry animal. And if you ever have 2 of the same kind together in one pen, they're going to fight. You're going to generate 1 negative victory point, which is on the back of these. There are two others, however, that are good. If you have two animals that have the heart symbol of the same kind in the same pen, they are going to make a baby. And you are going to add that to your pen as well. That only happens once per kind of animal, and only 3 different animals will do it. In fact, there you go. So as soon as I have 2 of the bears, for example, with the hearts, and I get the baby, if my opponent then has 2, they won't get the offspring. I've already done that, all right? And then the final symbol is this green square here. If you have 2 of those of the same kind in the same pen, then you are going to be able to go through the discard pile, take any one card you want, and add it to your display, all right? Game is going to be over when we hit this symbol, which is 5 cards from the bottom. That'll finish out that round. Or if you hit the one that's in here, a few tiles from the bottom, same thing, that will finish out that round. So that's how the game ends, all right? The only last thing I have to explain is the money actions. You are going to get money when you have 2 of the same symbol over here. So as soon as I get 2 ice cream symbols, I get another coin. You also get coins from some of these tiles here. And you can spend 2 of them to do one of 2 things, and that's your turn, that's your action, okay? You can steal an animal from one side to yours, from your opponent's side to yours, or you can pay 2 coins and get rid of all of your negative tokens. So if you've accumulated enough of these, you can then spend 2 coins and get rid of them all. Be aware, however, 2 coins equals 1 victory point at the end, so it's not normally worth it to discard 2 points to get rid of a single negative point. Those 2 would have canceled anyway, unless for some reason you want to delay taking an action and allow your opponent to take an action before you. So that's basically it. There's a couple of other things having to do with these stalls, and if you have too many of the same symbol, it can actually be bad for you if you get a third of a symbol. But that's the general idea. Collect animals, try to have more than your opponent, win those interim scores, and get some victory points on top of that at the end of the game. And if you do all of that correctly, you're going to end up with quite a nice stack of these victory points and some of these as well for the win. That is how you play Zooloretto Duell. All right, so that's it. Zooloretto Duell. Let's take a look at some talking points here. Target audience system, starting with thematic ties. The theme here is the same as Zooloretto. Works just fine, though it's certainly not as visually captivating as Zooloretto was when it first came out. For one thing, there is no nice board in front of you that looks like a zoo, and you're collecting the animals into the different enclosures and so on. This one does not transcend that theme. Doesn't, the mechanisms, I should say, do not transcend into that theme. I never felt like I was running a zoo. I was collecting cards, right? On the one hand, it's fine, and but it's more of in the family of Zooloretto than really gives you that feeling of running a zoo. The mechanisms, though, very much feel like Zooloretto, and so I think that it makes sense that this is part of that family. The mechanisms are unmistakably part of that system, The aesthetics, which is the quality of the components and the look of everything. I think the quality of the components is nice for the most part. Cards especially are great quality cards. I don't like the strip that goes in the middle with the puzzle pieces because it's fiddly. I wish it would have been simply clean cuts. You add them together, and when you score one, with the interim scoring, you flip it over. The little lock pieces are annoying, and they're unnecessary, so I don't like that. The look of the cards as well is a little tired by now. I know, if I'm not mistaken, that the graphic design on pretty much the entire Zooloretto line has been done by Michael Schott himself, the designer. And it's fine. It's okay. It works. But I do wish that someone with some fantastic artwork would have had a go at this, and made it look beautiful. Because it works now, but it's the same old sort of, not quite pixelated, but that little rendering of an animal that we've seen just superimposed on the card with a little glow outline on it. That's okay, but we're at the point now that it should look better than that. It was fine in Zooloretto, it needs to be better here, and the cards are much bigger than the tiles were in Zooloretto also. So, yeah, it's somewhere in the middle for me as far as aesthetics go, you know. The replayability, scalability obviously not being an issue here. It's only for 2 players. The replayability, I think, is from okay to not so good because there's not a ton of variability in the game. The game is largely going to play out in very similar ways. Even the icons on the cards that do add to that replayability are going to get samey after you've played, 5, 8 times, right? So I'm not sure that the replayability is there long term. This is not going to have the legs that something like Zooloretto did. In that one, it felt like you could replay over and over, and there was a lot more interest there with the little world you were building. In this one, I don't feel there's enough special cards. There's enough from game to game that changes to be really replayable. The game length is great. Game length is, it's quick, it's tight, it's short. You are always doing something in the game, and you can see the progression arc always moving. At no point in the game do you feel like you have stagnated in advancing the play. And so I like that very much. It's a very short game as well. You're looking at about 20 minutes or so. So really neat. I like that the gameplay is appropriately timed to how much is going on in it. Ease of play, which is fiddliness, anything like that, or any weird design choices, it's not there. The game is super clean. And if there's one thing to say about Michael Schott is that he is a champion of elegance and streamlining, these sort of Euro games. And this one, again, is extremely clean. It's a very straightforward design, You are just placing out the animals on the trucks or the vending stalls, placing them on your side. Every now and then you trigger some scoring. End of the game, you do some more scoring. Game's over, you count up your score. And the scores are quite low in this game. You're looking at, 13 points versus 11 or something like that. So nice and simple and tight. Ease of play is very much there. And then lastly, tactics and strategy and luck. There's some luck, certainly. You're flipping cards over from the top of the deck, especially if the other player bows out early and you continue pushing your luck, which is always fun. But the tactics and strategy in the game largely feel like the same tactics and strategy that we also had in Zooloretto. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. You want those recalls, right? Those callbacks to the bigger game. But there's also no new moment in which I felt, wow, this is really new and it's making me think in new and clever ways. So there are tactics here. There is responding to what your opponent seems to be doing, timing tactics as well, right? When do I take a money action? When do I not do one of the other 2 things? But for the most part, they are not mind-blowing. This is a light game, and that's okay. It is designed as such. So overall, I enjoyed this one. I like Zooloretto. I like Coloretto. I've liked this whole line for many years. I think this achieves mainly what it sets out to do, creating a 2-player Zooloretto. It's certainly for about the same audience as the previous games. It's a light game. It is going to be enjoyable for people that have enjoyed those previous games. I just worry a little bit about the replayability because there's not a ton of design space here, You are going to sort of do the same things from game to game. So that's my main concern, ultimately. But I enjoyed the game. I think it's fun. And if you are a big fan of the line of games, then I think you're also going to dig this one. That tug-of-war aspect is fun, and I always enjoy that in 2-player games. So check this one out. This one squeaks into a seal of approval for me. It's one that I am hoping to continue enjoying with different players. I'm just not sure I'm going to play with the same person a whole lot because I fear they might become a little bit tired of it, So that's it for me. Again, seal of approval for Zooloretto Duell.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.